name and your territory and which division you're from.
Yeah, no worries. James Lyon, Jim's Pest Control, Port Melbourne and Brighton.
How many jobs have you got lined up for today?
Today I've already done a big rodent service. So I've got one spray, got a possum inspection with potential rats there as well. And then finishing off with a big double-storey commercial restaurant in the city today. Bit of an easier day. Obviously, you guys are along for the ride. So typically, I'd sort of envisage to be doing anywhere between 4 and 7 jobs in a day like this, depending on what they are, and it does vary. So.
How long have you been a franchisee for?
Just clicked over 5 years. So 5 years and a double 5-star in 2 territories. So pretty pleased with that. I love the flexibility, the lifestyle. I like working as part of a team, but also having the autonomy of working by myself. So run my own day, run my own diary, type of work I want to do, where I want to do it, people I want to service. As far as lifestyle goes, I still get to do all the things I like doing. So last night I was finished up a bit earlier and had basketball coaching for my son's team. Help out with dinner. Help my wife out, Linda, with dinner and take a bit of the load off her. All the things I really love doing with my kids, which is fishing, being outdoors, camping, catching up with my mates and having a beer out in a beer garden somewhere or whatever it may be. That's what it's all about for me. We're doing an external spider spray. So I was actually here last week doing an internal and external, but a bit of miscommunication. I turned up and some gym fencing blokes were here. So it's all about sort of adapting on the day, and so we opted to run with doing the internal only. So the client had to leave for the treatment, and then there's a 4-hour re-entry after that. So she left. She'd already organised her house and organised to be away for that time. So proceeded with that, and then we're back here today just to do the external. So client doesn't have to leave. She just has to have all her windows closed and understand that there is an external re-entry today. So and she's got to stay in for a couple of hours post-treatment, but. We're just finishing off a what's called a general or spider spray. So dusting of roof void, internal aerosol, internal perimeter spray, and then today, which is an external spray. So spraying the walls, fence line, certain garden areas, anywhere basically that spiders and crawling insects will be harbouring. I'm just going to start mixing up and get some PP onto to mix up, and then we'll go around and do a quick risk assessment. Just make sure that we're not spraying kids' toys, shoes, windows are open. Make sure that there's a dog not sticking its nose through the fence waiting to be sprayed. Just sort of the obvious ones. So basically we'll just spray the whole outside of the house. Trying to just stay a bit away from the windows. We want to put a bit around the windows, but we don't want to drench them because it will mark them. So we don't want to get a complaint. But yeah, focusing on the outside of the house, fence line, gardens, trying to stay away from anything that's currently in flower. We don't want to kill bees unless we have to, and it's a bee-specific treatment. And in most cases, we want to save them. So part of pesticides use and management is also reducing the amount of toxicity within your client's household, but also limiting our exposure. We're working with it every day, and they're not great things. Chemicals of old, your organophosphates and chlorides and things like that. They're banned now.
Are the chemicals getting better in terms of their safety? Is it?
Yeah, definitely. Companies like Bayer, who are owned by Monsanto, which we're all probably aware of these days. Big companies, and not directly related to big pharma, but it's the same kind of level. It's big business. Millions and millions of dollars spent on R&D to develop these products so that they're more effective. One, that we're effectively controlling pests, but 2, also to beat things like resistance. So, there are certain pests, for example, primarily rodents, bed bugs, and cockroaches, where there is resistance. Continued use of synthetic pyrethroids on cockroaches and bed bugs has meant that there is some level of resistance. So there are always companies that are looking to get the edge. So you've got to change it up a bit sometimes. You've got to stay on the cusp of what is new and relevant in our industry. So post getting your license and doing all your formal training through an RTO, and then also your training within gyms, it's sort of up to the individual operator too to stay abreast of what's happening. You know, you've got to be reading pamphlets, you've got to be speaking to your suppliers, you've got to speak to your colleagues. We've got a great position within the pest industry. We've won an award 2 years in a row now, which is the Choice Consumer Award for our division. So people have confidence in us. We're all police checked, insured, so you know I can come onto a property like this, and in most cases, even though we're doing the outside today, the client leaves and they're leaving their baby with me, you know, with all their family photos and all their heirlooms and that, and I walk in, I do the job, I lock the door, I ring them, and you know, I think I've been spraying this house for 5 years now, and it's an unspoken thing, but you know, it sort of feels pretty good to be able to walk into someone's house and know that they've got the utmost faith in you to start your job and then leave your job, and knowing that that their place is safe and you've done the right job. I think that speaks volumes about the branding and the position that Jim's Pest Control and also Jim's as a group has within the service industry. Two options as far as baiting goes. One is wide bait, which we do, which is let's call it a controlled sense of free baiting. Yep. One, because we know where it is, it's accountable. Two, we can monitor on it. So next year we come back and Mrs. Jones says, "Oh, how'd we go?" Well, I put five wires in with 8 baits on it a piece, say. And I can see, well, I know I use those baits. They've eaten this one that year. They haven't eaten this one. They've eaten this much. So there is a monitoring and a reporting aspect to it, yeah. But it is also controlled. Right. The other option would be to use lockable boxes. Lockable boxes, once again, reportable, controlled, but in an instance where there are possums, possums are protected wildlife under the Wildlife Act. I think it was last updated in 1975. So it's a bit antiquated, but it is what it is. So the problem with those boxes is it is something new. So you put that box in, it's going to sit there for 30 days before the rat even goes into it, because it gets in there, it's got poor eyesight, it's touching, it's feeling, it finds this new black box and it goes, "Hey, I'm out of here." Whereas a bit of wide bait is just like, it's just a fancy kebab that someone's put in the roof for the rat, really. So, we don't want to over monitor it. So, as a general rule, baiting in a roof void, be something that based on, the information that we sort of accrue at inspection, we will make the call on how much bait we put in there, where we put it, and then typically we're trying to save the client money because we want ongoing work, but we don't want to be gouging that customer. So essentially, based on what we see, you might be putting enough bait in to last 6 months, but in most cases 12 months. Right. The reason we don't put hundreds and hundreds of baits in, which would give us a year or more, or even years, it takes 4 to 8 days after ingestion before they'll succumb to it. So they don't eat it on the first night and go, hey, I'm dying, I'll stop eating it. They'll just keep hammering it. So if you put up 100 blocks and you've got a sizable population, they will churn through 100 blocks. All right, let's have a look. So I'm just looking for areas that I probably need to focus on a little bit more. Actually moved a wasp nest here the other day, and there's another one up the top there. It's a little paper nest wasp. That's the Jim's fencing boys have done their job. Look at that. Done a great job. Just going to turn that over. We don't want to have anything that catches spray. So we'll dispose of that lovely water. That way we're not collecting any spraying that a dog could potentially drink or some kids can put their hands in, or definitely got to be careful in here because there's kids' toys. So just got to be a little bit careful. Move these. Beautiful. I've sprayed a lot of days where it's 40 plus. That's hard work. I think the hardest thing on a really hot day, look, you've just got to manage, you've got to manage your time really well, but you've got to manage your hydration. It's like, when you're kitted out, it's wearing, I wear black gloves because they're the thickest ones you can get, but every time you take them off within a very short period of time, there's probably 10 to 20 mil in there. So you've just got to, it's vital that you keep your hydration up just for, a whole range of different things. One, your health, but two, even just your, your mental stamina. You know what I mean? It's you get dehydrated and your mind starts playing tricks on you. So the hardest part is getting in a roof void on a really hot day late in the afternoon, like 4 or 5, westerly and northerly sun on it all day, and then the westerly sun on that black roof. You get in that roof void and it's like 80 plus in there. It's stifling, and you've got a whole range of things to deal with, electricity, sometimes water in the new houses, insulation, low clearance, respirator, so you've got, your peripheral vision's limited. Like it's next level, mate, yeah.
Now, do you proactively email the clients, or how does it work?
Look, I'm pretty organised. Have a number of different ways to do it. Primarily, it's just good old Excel spreadsheet. I'm proactive. I'm calling people.
When you call them,
Yeah, I call them. I don't send them text. I'm very much straight on the phone. Got your diary in front of you. Get them in. Yep. Like, I'm booked out pretty much this year. Like, just to give you an idea, it's my spider sprays for the year for pretty much. So 4 pages, and that's how far I've got this year, because with COVID, it's just, I've got such a backlog. So the way I look at it, I'm just going to come back from Christmas, having a bit of time with the family, and I've pretty much got, 3 or 4 months work just laid out in front of me. It took me probably about just over 2 years before I totally switched off from leads, and I've got 2 territories. And in both of them, I'm on territory only. I manipulate that based on seasons and what I've learned on my journey. A day like this, for example, might have an hour between sort of 5 and 7 heading home, and I'll turn on and see if I can, snag a bee job on the way home and, save some bees or do some wasps. And I try and manipulate it so that I'm picking up the more lucrative jobs and, jobs that require urgency. If you get a bee lead at 5 o'clock and you say, I'll get there on Thursday, Mrs. Jones, she'll say, I'll get back to you. You say, I'll get you on the way home tonight. And you guarantee you'll get a 5-star, maybe even a tip, and a customer for life. Next one's a possible rodent / possum. The fact that you're also hearing them during the day, lunchtime and then at evening, I would be leaning towards birds, but let's go through the motions. Let's jump in the roof, have a quick look.
Sure.
Whatever it is, rest assured we'll get it sorted.
Okay.
If it is rodents, we'll do it today.
Yeah.
If it is birds or possums, we'll reconvene at another time.
Day.
Yep.
Yeah.
So potentially a number of scenarios. One would be rodents, so mice or rats, which based on the information I would say it's probably not. The other option would be possums or birds. So the client is hearing things in the roof, hopping during the day or walking during the day, and then as the day sort of wraps up at 6 o'clock. So that's what sort of leads me to maybe birds more so than the other two, which are nocturnal. Also looking up at the corner there is a bit of nesting material hanging out of the roof line. So beautiful brand new house, establishing gardens. There's not trees growing up to the structure. It's going to be probably a balmy 50 to 60 degrees in there right now, maybe even a bit higher. Black tiled roof, 30-degree day. Right on 12 noon, it's going to be good. So looking forward to it. With all of these jobs, if you're getting into a confined space or into an area where there might have been a previous application of pesticide, we're donning PPE just to make sure that we're not walking through a pest controller's dust, or even little things. You're talking about the temperature. It's going to be, I reckon, 50 plus in there. So the pores are open. You'll get in that roof void, and there'll be fiberglass insulation. Unless you want to be sort of itching and rubbing yourself for the next 2 days, best to wear full length cotton overalls. Whereabouts in the house do you hear it?
Along this stretch.
Okay.
And then
Only ever in this area. Okay. When you hear it at 6 o'clock, does it sort of like build in terms of intensity and?
No, it's just like it sounds like animals running.
And is it one way, like an exit strategy, or is it just random?
Random.
Jumping up there, looking for hair or depressed insulation, droppings, etc., and just see if I can work out what it is. I'll be back. Hear any screaming? Send out the search party. Whew. So what I'm trying to do here is just piece together some of the, I suppose, potential pieces of the puzzle. So at the moment I found a few feathers, but otherwise this roof void's immaculate. There's no droppings in it. There's nothing that would suggest any rodent activity or possum at this stage, but we'll keep going. Possums are pretty conscientious creatures. I think they embody that old adage that not to defecate in your own nest. You know, sometimes trying to find actually where they are, or if they are frequenting or using a roof void as refuge if they are here. So you've got to really go over it with a fine tooth comb, and even then you might not find anything. You've got to shift the focus of the inspection externally and try and find the entry points. If you find an entry point, there'll be a few sort of telltale signs like hair. Sometimes the grease off their fur will discolour paintwork on the eaves or on the fascia. Or obvious examples would be chewing of fascia or plinth even sometimes, if it's sort of below the house. Leaning towards birds. While I'm in here I can actually hear Indian miners out on that corner making a bit of a noise. Well, there's some good news. It's definitely not rats or mice. I've got a feeling it's birds or possums, and now it's just a matter of eliminating them. Which one, and then it might not even be. Oh, look, I've got a feeling if it is birds, they're not even in the roof. I've got a feeling they're running along the gutter line or the tiles. Did you hear me tapping the tiles softly?
Yeah.
I was only going like this.
Oh, builder.
Every roof I get into, I can pull out 2 or 3 of those.
Yeah.
It must be cheap. If they can,
Sure.
they leave it in the, like, keep it. It's good stuff. I've got like a shed full. So we've done a preliminary inspection of the roof. Unfortunately, it hasn't turned up anything sort of conclusive or some hard evidence, but we have more than likely now a possibility of birds walking the gutter line, or even potentially possums. So when we have these parapet wall sections with a flat skillion roof that's recessed below this parapet wall, we have box gutters, and unfortunately it's a bit of an oversight, but they don't fly the flashing right underneath through the parapet. And there's an open void or an accessible void that is in that parapet, and that parapet is tied into the rest of the structure, and there's an entry point there. What's interesting is on the other box gutter section there's actually some nesting material or something hanging out of it. With regards to possums, potentially brushtail or ringtail, both have the ability and sometimes the want to get into those sections. The difference is that the brushtail won't take any nesting material in, whereas a ringtail will. So a ringtail builds a nest in the tree, which is called a dray, and even though they make that jump into our structures, they don't leave behind that habit of creating a nest. They'll actually try and build the nest inside a roof, whereas a brushtail will just utilise what's there in terms of insulation. So, as I said, there is a gap, so it's a bit hard to tell, but I can literally stick my arm up through a section here, and I can stick my arm up into here. So if I carefully do it, that is all. I've got my whole forearm up into here. So this is all hollow. So can you see that couple of hairs hanging off the gutter over there too? So just there's a hair that's flapping in the wind. And then there's all that nesting material, see in the gutter there? And then see this bit of flashing profile here? There's a couple of things going on there. One, it's hollow and it's raised. And then if you look at it, there's almost scaling on top of the mould and dirt that's accrued here. So that's in there. See how far I got my hand up? Yeah, so that's all hollow. and then that joins into this, which goes into there, so it's not hard for them to get up and go that way. There is what appears to be like footprints in the dirt. So what I normally sometimes do here is actually bring back a camera that's got an SMS in it, like a SIM card, and then it just sends me photos of what moves in and out during the night, and then we sort of formulate or strategise a plan based on that. See, there is also a feather in there. So, you know, birds could use it too. It's not really what I'd expect a bird to be going into. So yeah, Indian miners, so they make a really big nest. Like I've got into houses where they've been nesting for years and years, and then I'm not kidding you, the nest is the size of a mini miner. Like they just keep building and building and building, and they're renowned for not being really too picky on what they use. So they use really rough stuff. They use a lot of plastic. Yeah. So the other thing they use a lot of is other feathers from nests. So I reckon that's our answer. We'd have to block off the holes. In this particular circumstance, it's a little bit tricky. You know, even though we're pest controllers and we've got to control things in a lot of cases by lethal means, you know, most of us guys that are really, you know, look, I'll go out on a limb and say good at what we do and enjoy what we do. We have a great connection with nature. You know what I mean? I've got 40 snakes at home. You know what I mean? I breed snakes. I've been, you know, my earliest memories of collecting tadpoles and having turtles, and you know, my ability and my understanding of nature is what's allowed me to do really well at my job. So I don't want to kill these birds. And in most cases, I'll be able to talk to the client and say, let's let the birds fledge, let's let them leave the nest, and then we'll block them out. The other thing is, in this scenario where we can't see them, if we block it and they die in the roof, there is a chance that they're going to smell, and then we're going to have maggots. So sometimes it's easier just to try and, you know, communicate to the customer what, you know, that let's let them leave. You know, there's a bit of communication because we've got to sort of, you know, get in on a window. You know, even if we're a week late and they lay another set of eggs, you know, it's not going to be a big problem. But we don't want, you know, 200 or 300 grams of bird and meat and feather and in a roof rotting. It just doesn't make sense. So see where this section of flashing comes out through. See how it's all dirty and there's an accumulation of algae and a whole range of different things. It's not clean. Yep. Whereas if you look in there, it's the same. As I bring the camera around, you'll actually see the difference with this one is you see that smudging of the build-up on the actual flashing, and you can actually see the actual bird's claws in it. So there's virtually a section where when they come up and out, in and out, they've actually worn away all the grime and dirt, so it's actually polished in under there. So that's pretty much a wrap. After doing a thorough inspection of the roof void, and externally we have narrowed it down to birds, and narrowing it down even further, we've narrowed it down to Indian miners based on nesting. It works in with what the client's been hearing, timing, etc. So the next thing to do would be to just explain to them what is happening, and then organise a time to come back and actually block off the birds. So they're not using it at present, so I'd say that the chicks have fledged and left, so we just want to try and get in that window before they start up again and lay the next lot of eggs. So we'll sort of aim to be out here in the next week or so and block those off in such a way that, one, it excludes birds, possums and rats, but doesn't inhibit water flow or you know, cause a potential leak in the roof itself. So yeah, that's it. We're on to the last job of the day. This is a commercial service. I've been looking after these guys now for about 5 years. Essentially I do a monthly service every month, you know, including right through COVID. So with a lot of food service businesses, they require some form of commercial contract in place to prove they're doing pest control. This place is very, very, very clean. It is a routine service, so we're just going through and looking for any current sign of pest activity or anything that might be conducive to new activity. So we assist in things like recommending getting equipment serviced. We're looking for water leaks, we're looking for drainage issues, we're looking for a whole range of different things, even down to basic hygiene, where they're storing food, how they store food, and we're making recommendations on how they can improve those areas, and that is directly related to current or potential future pest activity. So we'll go through and we'll be looking for things like cockroaches, rodents, and we'll be doing some preventative works and also some monitoring work. So looking at updating and refreshing rodent baits and rodent stations, and that's going to tell us if there is any current activity. And we'll get into it and walk you through it. And here we have it. So, commercial kitchen. The amount of people actually have through the door is ridiculous. Like I said, this is really clean. You can see, this they've knocked off for the day, but it's spotless. You can eat off the floor in here. We've got about 10 or 11 mouse boxes up here. So we'll just go through and check those. Typically the last Tuesday of the month.
Really?
Yeah, I do this, yep.
Is that something they have to do, or is it just something?
Look, they're very proactive.
Yeah.
So look, as a general rule, most places that are quite busy and have, obviously a fair amount of let's call it activity, not in terms of pest activity, but in terms of movement of stock in and out. So, for example, some of the biggest transporters of pests are actually in the packaging materials that you get from your supplier. So, German cockroaches are by far the most successful cockroach in a commercial environment, or even in a residential environment, in the kitchen. They basically live off our food, and they're brought in normally on cardboard that you get most of your materials from. So, for example, if you went to Vic Market and you walked around the fruit and veg section and you had a good look, I guarantee you'll find a couple of German cockroaches. So they're going to get a lot of their produce from the Vic Market. It comes in cardboard containers, in boxes, in crates, and unfortunately, sometimes something slips in. And that's what I'm doing here monthly. I'm trying to intercept them, and it's more preventative. When I took over this many years ago, there was another pest controller doing it. And look, I've been doing this place 5 years now, and from where we started to where we are now is absolutely phenomenal. So this is a little snake hook I use, and work smarter, not harder. And that's what you want to see. It's a month. Those baits are fresh. Nothing's eaten them. I already can see that there's no mouse droppings down the side of the fridge. We're well and truly on top of this. So we'll leave that there and start taking a mental tally, because we've got a report on everything we've done. So how many baits, where they are, what brand they are, or who the manufacturer is, their trade name, their batch number, and the quantity. It's good to know when we've been good result. It's a good reason as a pestie to sort of run a variety of different baits. Just a bit like us, you might like capers or artichoke hearts. I don't like either. Mice are the same. So they've got right into that one there. Not everyone can do it. It's a lot of blood, sweat and tears, a lot of sacrifices at times. In the first year, mate, I was the first one at school with the kids and did all that. But as time went on, I found that I got less time to do those sort of things. I don't regret that, because I still get to do everything else. I still get to go do all the sports, I do everything. I just can't be there to pick them up 3 or 4 days a week. My wife does that. But yesterday I did, like I do. I can pick my moments.
Say if you wanted to, you could.
I could, yeah. But the reality of it is, if you want to keep turning over 250, and then get it to 350, and then put a worker or 2 workers on, that requires some sacrifice. Early days, there was the ability to do that more. I still have great work-life balance, better than working for an employer. If I don't want to work in the morning, I just don't work. You can't do that if you're employed. You can't. I trained for longer than I needed to with gyms. I was lucky when I started that I had a franchisor that was very, very accommodating, like most of them are, and like my current franchisor is. And, you know, the training was a month, but I ended up training for probably closer to 4 months. So I paid for a month's worth of training, and then for 3 months after that, I worked for free. They didn't pay me. I didn't want to be paid, but, you know, leaving my last role, I was quite comfortable. So I just did an extra couple of months training. So when I actually landed working for myself, I hit the ground running. Like I could do all pests. So, you know, there's still things I can do that, like, or things I've learnt from you know, by doing extra training that guys in our system can't do now. And, you know, it's all relevant to the amount of time that people have to learn, or the jobs that they're picking up. But, you know, they haven't seen or had the desire or the requirement to learn those jobs. And, you know, I'm teaching guys that have been, you know, there longer than me. I'm teaching them how to do those jobs I learned in that first instance now. You know, I taught a guy just the other day how to do a gutter guard system. And, you know, that guy's been here for 8 years, but, you know, he's never had the lead or the opportunity or the request to do that job. And, you know what I mean, I was doing it, so I said, come out and have a look at it. And, you know, that job, you know, I probably worked pretty hard that day, but, you know what I mean, I worked on that job and it cost me maybe $300 worth of materials, and I invoiced them for $2,000. You know what I mean? That's, you know, if you focus on every little negative thing, quality of leads, how your customer treated your ploy, you could have made an extra $40, or you lost $100 on this job because you didn't quote it right. The moment you let go of all that is when your business just explodes. It all comes out in the wash. It really does. So, if you want to get up in here, that's the first cockroach I found. So we'll gel him. So that's one. Spot on. Bit of a hit. He'll die now, mate. I'll just deal with him a bit. Got him out of there, so it's just what we call flushing. Spot on. Whew. Big day, good day. Fun day. And we're done, mate. We just got to do a bit of paperwork and we can get out of here. So we'll just go down and get the folder. There you go, mate. Welcome to the some of the drawings that the kids do me over the years. A little girl called Lauren did this for me. That's my family and me, and Happy, and Lauren not in my family. Thanks for coming out today, guys. If you've liked what you've seen, and you've ever thought about a change in lifestyle and job, give us a call on 131 546.
That's it. Perfect.